It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Ever wondered how can I create more freedom and reduce stress in my business? As a speaker and best-selling author, Carrie Asuncion has spent 20-plus years guiding superachievers around the world to increase profitability and go after dreams. Blending her experience as a VP of Human Resources with years as a business coach and powerful intuitive skills, Carrie guides business owners to uncover 5 to 6 figures in hidden revenue so they get back to their life. When not coaching or facilitating groups, Carrie enjoys walks along Santa Cruz beaches and redwoods. She and her husband also enjoy sailing and visiting family and friends. Oh, I love visiting with my family and friends. You live in Santa Cruz. I've never been, I've only been to a few places in California, but it sounds beautiful.
It's gorgeous. We're a short walk to the beach and the harbor, and also a short walk up the road to the redwoods. So it's a really unique area along the coast of the Central Coast of California.
Oh, it just sounds beautiful. I've heard people talking about it a lot lately. I'm not sure, it's funny, maybe it's my call to go visit. I'm not really sure.
That's right. I was listening to one of your, I saw that you actually met with Julianne last week. She's also here on the Central Coast.
Oh, okay. So, it's funny. What a small world we live in.
Truly.
Right? Like, seriously. Okay, so you create more freedom and reduce stress in my business. Tell me how I can do that.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, well, it starts with taking a deep breath. Let's do that together. I find that often what we're doing is that we're in front of ourselves, or we're thinking about what's happened in the past. But when we are actually totally present to this moment, then we're able to be present to ourselves and to our clients. That's just one of the things in which I do, but I also help with strategies to begin to focus women on what's really, how to share their genius with the world. I call it an embodied presence.
Wow. So basically, it's the same secret that we tell everyone when they're trying to, conquer something, right? Any kind of challenge. It's like you just need to be present and, sort of focused on that one thing for, whatever amount of time you need.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you said that, and what I find is that an overwhelming number of women that I'm speaking to are actually struggling with that focus. And it might be because they're caregivers, they have children, or maybe that's part of that sandwich generation where they're caring for their elder parents. But it's really difficult, I think, for women in particular to find that area of focus to be able to share their genius. So I basically ask them to come back to why did they get into the business in the first place? And then let's give them strategies that they can begin to hang their hat, to focus their attention so that they can have a profitable business. So they can basically, I like to say, follow your purpose, your passion, and your profitability.
Yeah. I know there's lots of people in the world, and I don't want to just say women, but there's lots of people that are really not following their passion, right? They went to university believing that they wanted to do what they're going to school to do. And then years later, they're realizing, this is not my thing, right? And so I know women like more my age, when they realize that, and it's usually after they, kind of raised their family and went through the hard part of life, they go, I want to do something that I actually enjoy, right? And so that's where you come in and you say, okay, let's do what you enjoy, and, I'm going to teach you how to be more present, more focused, so that you can make it, I guess, not necessarily, you work more like towards let's make you money, or is it more about just doing what you want to be doing?
I actually bridge the two. So I feel that first we have to come from, I'll call it the frequency or the vibration of passion and really being in alignment with what we love to do. So I can actually, I'm an intuitive as well, so I can actually sense if there is a blockage in what's going on. The other day I was talking to somebody and I was on the telephone, so I don't have to actually be in somebody's presence in order to see this. But I was like, what's going on with your throat chakra? What's going on? There's a disconnect between your heart and your head. And she chuckled and she goes, how do you know this? She goes, yes, there is. So it's primarily a focus more recently about profitability, because what I realized is that when people are truly in alignment with their genius and they're able to use certain strategies to I call it strategies that I wasn't taught in school. I wasn't taught when I went to coaching school, that they can then rest into knowing that sharing their genius, basically. So, yeah, I've been focusing more on the profitability piece most recently, because I began to realize unless we focus on that piece, people are going to be in the, I'll call it the hustle or the hamster wheel, right?
Yeah, which makes sense, right? And I think, I don't know. Like you said, women have a hard time focusing, right? And that's because they often have, they wear many hats at one time, right?
Yeah.
And I think men are able, and so this is what I've seen in my life, men are able to walk out of the house and be in work mode, right? They're, obviously you can phone them and, there's an emergency, there's this, there's that. But they're able to go to work and focus just on work. Now I'm in my work clothes. And women can't seem to do that. Women are like, okay, yes, I'm dressed for work, but half the time, our minds are on what we, could be doing at home or should be doing at home, or, what our kids are doing, and, I have to remember to do this, and I have to remember to do that. And I find, especially with my husband, he writes it down so that he doesn't forget, but when he's at work, he's at work. I don't think we're like that.
You brought up something that really stood out for me, Tina, when you talked about, I call it shoulding on ourselves, that we should be doing more. We should know how to do this, or we should be doing more. And it's hard to be two places at once. So I think that's what you're pointing to, is that, and you just think about it, the frequency of shoulding on ourselves, like feeling that we're bad or we're wrong for what, and that we're not doing it well enough, is really detrimental to us being in our vibrancy, being able to be of service, I would say, to our clients, to ourselves, and to our communities.
I like that. It is detrimental, right? I'm learning that there's, I'm not shooting on myself anymore, right? I can only do so much, right? And if I can't get to it, I can't get to it. I'll do it when I can.
That makes me curious. What do you tell yourself to keep yourself out of the shooting mind?
I'm not hard on myself anymore. Now I'm you know what? You can only do so much, right? And so I'm suffering right now actually with frozen shoulder. And so I am physically not able to do what I want to be doing, right? And when I say want to be doing, that's the everyday cleaning of my house, right? I can only do so much. So I tell myself, if you could, you would, right? But it's not a matter of, you should be doing it, right? Because I should be doing it, yes, because I want it done, right? But not because, I think it should be done. I need it done for myself. But right now I can't do it, right? So I'm learning how to be compassionate with myself.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing, is a deep sense of caring and compassion coming from that place of, I like to laugh about it, actually. Is that really true? It doesn't really, should I really be doing that? Or am I just telling myself that I need to be doing that? And so I kind of use humor too. Compassion and humor. I think they're wonderful companions. They're twins
true.
along this path.
Yeah. So that's something I've heard that before. I've been advised to, ask myself, is that really true? And it's funny that you say that because I don't do that to myself. But I know that, it's not that I should be doing it. It really is because I want to be doing it. Like, I don't like walking into my kitchen first thing in the morning and last night's dishes are still there. Like, that drives me crazy, right? So it's not a matter of I should do them. I want to do them, right, for my own sanity.
Yeah.
Just right now with my shoulder, I can't. And so, but I tried, and I'm sure, and I even advise, other women the same, just changing that word should, right? It's not, I don't know who created that word, because it's kind of a slang. It's kind of a swear word, really, right?
I love it. It's a swear word. That's a quotable moment.
Yeah. Don't you think, really, who says you should do something, right?
Oh, yeah. I love that. The other one that I just love is I will try. And I'm like, let's make a decision. Are you going to do it or you're not going to do it?
Right. And I'm learning that now too, right? I keep hearing trying is lying, right? And so,
okay.
Right. And so I'm like, well, no, I am going to try, right? If I do it, it gets done. If I don't do it, it didn't work. But I get, I also understand that, if I'm trying and I don't put my heart into it, then it won't work, right? Whereas if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, whether it's, in my heart or not. I'm going to get it done.
Yeah, so I often ask the women I work with, what are you committed to? And they go, what? And I go, so what are you committed to? Are you committed to having a deeper sense of peace and enjoyment in what you're doing? Or are you committed to being stressed out and in the hustle? And that's a powerful thing to realize, help them realize that they get to choose what they're committed to.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, when you ask yourself in the morning, who do I need to be today, right? It's okay, so what am I going to be today? Who really, who needs to be here today, right? I have this to get done, right? So tell me, where do I fit there? Who has to do that, right? Because it could be present me, or it could be, blog brain, right? Where we're in another world, just, kind of going with the flow, doing whatever I got to do. But if you're present, you not only do what you got to do, but you get it done, and you get it done your way.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sounds like we have some feedback coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love what you're saying. Is that so? Who do we get to be? I often say that too, because, in fact, Atomic Habits. Have you read that book?
I have, yes.
Yeah. So I love, because they talk about our behaviors and our outcomes are all as a result of the target in the middle is who we're being. So I love the fact that I didn't know that that's what you focus on too. I actually have a morning practice that I go through my gratitude. I go through basically centering my mind and my body in my day. And then I do ask myself, who do I get to be today? And so today, because I have a number of talks that I'm doing, and I started my day off with a networking event called BNI. I go, okay, so I get to be compassionate connection today. And that means to myself, to others, and just being present in that. And then it's less of a hustle to, the rest of it's just extra,
Right. Yeah, I get that. And so when you say to yourself, I get to be committed and connected, do you need to remind yourself throughout the day, especially at well, maybe at a networking meeting, not, because that's sort of the purpose of being there. But like throughout your day, like, you know, things happen. You might get a phone call that, you know, is a little disruptive to your day. How do you bring yourself back to that?
I just have to say that is so true. And it's something I teach actually with the visioning exercises that I do, is that often what happens in this dualistic world is that the opposite shows up, right? And so we get to come back to our center going, oh, right, take a breath. Who do I get to be? You know, connected and compassionate. So, yeah, it's a moment-to-moment practice, I think. It's not just like do it in the morning and then it gets infused throughout the day.
Yeah, like, I mean, I struggle with that still, right? So usually, because I do it, like, on my bed, right, not before I get up, but I do it after my shower so that I'm, like, fresh and ready for the day. And I sit there and I go, now, how am I going to keep myself reminded that that's who I am today? Right? Because I'm going to be honest, I fail at that often because I don't bring myself back to that moment. But when I go back to my room, you know, and of course, working from home, it's a little bit easier. I'm going in and out of my room a little bit more often than I would. But if I don't make it through, you know, when I go into my room, I see my bed and I'm like, oh, right, today it was, you know, I'm being, you know, ambitious and motivated, right? Or whatever it is. But if I don't go back to my room, and if I don't go back to my room, you know, if something comes up throughout the day, I don't think of those two words. I don't think of that. And so I tend to fall back into, like, my old pattern where I'm, you know, I don't know, whatever, like I'd be cranky or whatever it was that it's my normal. Not my normal. I don't want to say normal, but my natural, right? Because we all are, you know, I'm still learning how to control my emotions. Right? So how do you do that? How do you keep up with, you know, that reminder of, okay, this is who I am today?
You know, that's a good question. I think before I go, so like I said, I have a number of calls. I'm doing a facilitation at lunch today. And I think I just take a deep breath before I go into the experience. Like I have at least 15 minutes between each of my, I try to have 15 minutes between each of my calls, when my client calls and so on, so that I can actually, you know, take a moment, go outside, be in the sunshine for a moment, take a deep breath, ground, and then remind myself who I get to be. I find, though, I do the reminding more when I consider I'm actually realizing when it's like more of a, I'm going to be on, let's say. I'll call it a pivotal moment. I'm going to be on, like right before my networking or right before a presentation or even before this call today. I was like, who do I get to be? Compassionate, connected. You know, so I think it's just, and like I said, the stuff shows up. Like conversations with my sister sometimes where I'm like, really? And so it pushes my buttons, right? And I just had, So I think it's a moment-to-moment practice. Sometimes I actually ask myself, so what is the image that I'm getting? Because I see a lot in images. So it might be, okay, like I'm just feeling into it right now, like a compassionate and connected woman. So I envision, I have a little statue that has a heart, and she's in like her, I'll call it her Zen space. You know, she's kind of like in a meditative stance, and she's got this heart around her necklace. So I might grab an image in my environment and put it on my desk. So it's on my desk almost becomes my little altar, right?
Yeah, I've heard that too. I've heard, you know, but I mean, let's face it, our desks are not big enough for all these reminders, you know, unless you want to change them every day, right? Unless you are, you know, unless you're looking for that, what's the word I'm looking for? Like if that's who you want to be every day, right? That would be your compassionate and your, right? So that would be your thing for every day.
Well, she does spend a lot of time with me. Let me say that little figurine that I'm telling you
so
about.
and I guess she could have lots of different meanings, right? But that could be your grounding and your, who am I today? You look at her and she's like, oh, you're like, oh yeah, that's what I said today. I'm going to be this kind of Carrie today. Yeah, I love that. I love that.
I think in contrast, I can remember when I was in corporate for a number of years, and I rose to the level of VP of Human Resources, and it was just like chasing the next crazy thing that needed to get done, and it wasn't very conscious, let's say. It was more like deadline focused and everybody else's priorities. And so I think as I'm getting a little bit older and wiser, I'm coming back to, so I have to be compassionate with myself first before I can go out and be compassionate with other people. So, it's that continual asking, does this need to be done right now? Is this true? Questioning it as opposed to just taking it at face value.
Right. You said something about you have to be compassionate with yourself first before you can be compassionate with others. And it dawned on me that I've always said I really have no compassion in me. But at the same time, when you said that, I'm like, yeah, I've never been compassionate with myself, right? I'm like, most other women, and I'm always hard on myself. I mean, I'm getting better because I'm learning, right, that, that's not how we should be living. We should be living our lives, right? We need to be living our lives like we actually admire ourselves and have reason to respect ourselves. And so, when you said that, I'm like, oh, yeah, so that's why I feel like I have no compassion, because I have no compassion.
Right. So we can get impatient with others because we don't have first compassion with ourselves. Yeah, I was brought into a body of work that called positive intelligence. Have you ever heard of that?
I think I have, but I'm not sure, but you can tell me all about it.
Okay, well, it's super cool. It's relatively easy to do. So it's called positive intelligence. And the concept here is that we can either live in the saboteur mind, which is that part of us that is constantly judging. Like we can probably all relate to the perfectionist, the stickler, the driver. I'm a high achiever. So there's, I could do something and then it just seems like the next, I'm on to the next thing, right? So it was created by, and I didn't create it. This is created a body of work that came out of Stanford by this guy named Shirzad Shamim. I think I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. And it's just super powerful because it basically helps us to go into sage mind as opposed to saboteur mind. And sage mind knows it's in that place of creativity. It's in that place of, like I was saying, presence. It's in the place of collaboration, which happens to be like I think a really strong female attribute. Like we really want to please, right? That's that opposite of the shoulding, where we feel like we have to be doing something because we're going to be judged or blamed or guilty. And instead, we come from a place of positive regard. And so I blend the two because I don't think I mentioned this, but I geek out about this stuff because I not only have that background in human resources, like managing high-performance teams, but then I went back to school to get my advanced degree in somatic psychotherapy. So I'm all about like how do we create high performance in ourselves and in the teams that we work with, in the communities that we work with. And so when I saw this tool come across, positive intelligence, you can look it up a little bit later. Like I said, it's just a really powerful piece of work because it helps you with just a few strategies. Let's say, first of all, it's becoming aware, right? There's that judgy mind that's going on. There's names for it, kind of catchy little names for the saboteurs. But the judge is the biggest one, basically. There's the avoider, the controller. Maybe some of these will sound familiar to your readership, or they can relate. The hyperachiever, the hyper-rational, hyper-vigilant, the pleaser, the victim, or the restless person. So that ability that there's always the next level of excitement driven by adrenaline and so on. And so those can, so I'll get off my soapbox about that, but I just think it's really powerful to realize that we all have some aspect of those saboteurs in our psyche, and how can we begin to wrestle with them? Because it's actually quite a human thing. We all have them, especially the judge, but it's a matter of taming it so that we're more in our sage mind.
Right. Yeah, I used to forgive myself for judging other people because it is human nature. And then when my husband kept saying, all humans judge, right? It's human nature. And to me, for whatever reason, it was like it was a pass, right? And so I used to be quite judgmental. And I wouldn't speak it out loud necessarily, but in my mind. And then when my kids got older, my daughter used to point out how I was looking at people, right? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you're looking at that lady like you're really judging her. And I was like, oh, really? Like in a negative way? So I'm one of these, I guess maybe it's the European in me where, our mind is on our face. And I was like, oh. So that was my first realization that, you know what, you need to stop that because, it's one thing to judge people. But when you can tell that you're being judgmental and you're not even opening your mouth, that's really bad, right? Good or bad, right? Like, yeah. So, and I never really, like, when my daughter pointed that out to me, that I thought, wow, like, it's one thing to judge people, but, let's not be like overly judgmental.
Yeah.
So I've really taken a step back on that. And it's funny that you say that this, we all have it and you need to become aware of it, right?
Yeah, well, because it could be driving the show or you can be driving the show. That's the difference there. And,
right.
And like what you're saying is that I'm thinking about when you talked about judging others is, I guess I get curious then. If I'm judging others, like I'm trying to think like the networking meeting I went to this morning. Oh, okay. I was kind of judging it because I was like, man, you guys got lots of rules. And then I thought to myself, so what does that have to say about me? Do I have lots of rules? Or, what's my relationship to rule following? I don't know. So I use it as like a tool then to get to know me better. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of where I've gone. Like that's kind of the direction that I've taken with that because, I still believe that, as in human nature, we are going to judge. But then I think, why am I judging? Right? Like why is that different for me? Or is it the same and do I treat it the same? Right? Like that's so kind of like what you're doing. Like I think that means something to me if I'm judging it. So what is that about me?
Yeah, it means something to me or this body of work that I was talking about, positive intelligence, they say basically one of the reasons that we judge is to keep ourselves safe. And so the concept there is our brains were actually pre-wired to look for the saber-toothed tiger. That was going to, what's the word, attack us, right? So there's no longer the saber-toothed tiger, but we still have a part of our brain, I think it's the amygdala, that is on hyper alert. So if we can begin to reframe or help that part of our brain to look for the positive that's out there as opposed to the negative, then we become, and it's never a black and white thing, but it becomes more of a propensity to, let's call it celebrate what's out there rather than make that which is around us bad and wrong. Because truly, like the example I was giving earlier, that I was kind of judgy about the fact that they have some rules that seemed kind of arbitrary and like, why would I want to play by their game book kind of a thing? But the whole of the meeting was really positive. I got to meet 20 other superstars, so I'm like, oh, okay. So that was judging, right? And is this in service? It's discernment, maybe. But it's not going to hurt me, right, to follow some of the rules.
Right.
So anyways, that's kind of where my mind goes with all of this, is just first being aware of my response. Am I having, I call it an open body aware response, or am I having hands over my chest and protecting myself stance?
Oh, yeah, that makes sense, right? That totally makes sense. Like, are we judging that because, we feel like we're in danger in some way? Yeah. And I could see that as a network meeting, right? Because you're meeting people that you don't know. You don't know if they're going to be your client, if there's someone you can collaborate with, or someone that you're just going to become acquaintances with, right? And, yeah, I could see that, right? Because nobody likes to be vulnerable.
Yeah, and I guess I've found it more, I think that might be one of my, I call it super sauce, is that I feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable and to be my wacky self, I'm realizing, why try to be like somebody else? Taken. I get to be me. I get to be my full self-expression. And believe me, I didn't feel this way when I was younger. I remember keeping my mouth shut, not really wanting to express my viewpoints, even though I might have had an alternative viewpoint. And I guess that's coming back full circle, by the way, when we started this conversation, is like saying, so what makes what I do with women different? And I think it's because I ask them to have presence, to be confident in their presence, and acknowledge the fact that we are all unique. But this has been a process for me. I wasn't born this way, right? It's a little bit audacious, because I remember when I said at a coming out party in 2016, by coming out, I meant that I was coming out to the world that I'm an intuitive, that I see things that maybe others don't see, and hear messages, see blockages, etc. And that could be kind of witchy, I guess. But I thought, those that understand or curious will engage.
That's true. That's true. It's, kind of almost sad that we have to come out, right?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is not, it's really not acceptable, right? It's kind of looked down on still.
Well, it can, but then again, those aren't my people. And that's what I do.
Right.
Yeah, right? And so I think as we're able to be more, coming back to full circle to what we started talking about today, was having that embodied presence, then we're able to own, that I get to do this. I get to rock this. And
absolutely.
That's not to say the little nigglings come in and they say, what the heck are you thinking? But for the most part.
Well, and the thing is, being an intuitive sounds like, are you psychic? Or are you psycho? You tell me, what is it, right? Because we all have intuition, right? Not everyone knows how to I guess I want to say listen to, but it's not really necessarily listening to, but we all don't know how to get in touch with our intuition, right?
Yeah, I guess not everybody does. You're right.
Yeah, I noticed with my daughter, she really had a hard time reading people. She trusted everyone. She thought everyone was, like her mom and her dad, and loved her for who she was, no matter what. And unfortunately, she got hurt a few times by, friends and boyfriends. And finally, I said to her, what does your body say to you when you are meeting people? And she was like, what are you talking about? And I felt really bad, because I thought I should be teaching her this from when she was little, but I didn't really understand it myself at the time. But as I got older, I started to realize, our bodies tell us, right, if something is good for us or not good for us. And we need to right? And that's what our intuition is, right? And so, it took me a long time to figure it out on my own. But I tried with her, because she was meeting all these new people, being young. And I said, your body's telling you if this is good for you or not. And so, we all have it, right? It's just a matter of if we pay attention to it.
Yeah, and so I think what you're pointing to is that we all process differently, though, too. So she may not be aware of her body's signals, like I was talking about earlier. Like, am I open-hearted and feeling at ease in my body, or am I feeling like I need to protect myself, like closing? I call it contraction or openness. But another tool that I've been using with people, and this is a form of intuition in a way, but isn't as body-based, and I actually do this with clients if I'm, or potential clients if I'm working with them, and I say, so imagine that you are continuing along this trajectory. Imagine it's 3 months from now and you're continuing along this trajectory. Imagine what that's like in your environment. Like, are you happy with those results? Or imagine that you actually get the support and the strategies and the compassionate leadership to take you, or accountability to take you to the next level. Imagine that 3 months from now. What could that be like in your life and in your business to do that? And people can generally feel into that, what I call it, future pacing, if they can't get into their bodies.
Oh, that's a good way of bringing them in. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, that's like, that's like that question. If anything was possible and there was no possibility of failure, what would you be doing? Right? That's almost the same kind of question, right?
Yep, same kind of question, because it's like, it's future pacing and it's going, okay. So like I got a new aha just recently. So my mom, I was helping my mom pass recently. It was a few months journey. And I began to realize, so what do now that I'm in this new chapter, she's just about a month ago, she transitioned. And so I'm in a new chapter. And so I get to reimagine my future. And one of the things that got really clear to me, like you're talking about, like, what would you do if you didn't have any fear, or there was no limits? And I'm like, I'm going back to doing my retreats again, because I used to do domestic and international retreats, like taking women to Bali or Isla Mujeres, Mexico, or even beautiful places in the United States, like along the Central Coast here and Sedona. And so I'm vibed up again, because I asked myself the question, that future pacing questions, like what do I want my life? I didn't say 3 months. I said more like what was the next 9 months to 12 months.
Wow, that's great. So this is something, anybody could ask themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they need to reach out for support, that's when they would come to you. Because, obviously when you say support, that's what you mean, right? Let me help you. Let me guide you on the steps that you need to do to be that person in 3 months or 9 months or whatever you wish to be.
Yeah, I generally use it for people who are either potential clients or going to be or already clients. You're right. But, the fact is I'm not the only resource that they have. So sometimes it's a matter of just connecting them to the fact that they have a deep desire to have life look different than what it is. They are, what's the word? Compliant is not the right word. Complacent is the word I'm looking for. That maybe they've been in a place where they're like, yeah, it's good enough. And I'm like, okay, is good enough good enough? Or do you want to take it to the next level? So I think that's possibly one of my secret sauces, is that I begin to help people. I call it, I'm a chief possibility officer, because I help people to see possibilities where they didn't see possibilities before. I call it like walking down a corridor and you don't even realize that there's doors that are there on either side. And I say, let's go look in that door. Let's poke in there. And it might be a little scary or, to do things differently or whatever. But I ask them to open the door. But first, the door is there. Open the door. Check it out. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, everything is there to support you, to help you learn more about yourself and others. In fact, I've often said that entrepreneurship is one of the best personal growth tools that we have on this planet, right? You've probably experienced that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it brings a lot of us to our business, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. I love this. So we didn't really talk much about your business. We talked a lot about, our really, like, how to grow, really. What kind of, so like, okay, so I'm going to go back here a second.
Mm-hmm.
When women come to you and they want to work with you, what are they struggling with?
So generally stress and overwhelm. They're in a persistent, possibly even lifetime pattern where they've been in struggle. And then what I basically share with them is that they no longer have to be struggling to that extent. In other words, if you get clear on what it is, there's a 3-step process. Get clear on what it is you want to create, overcome the blocks, and take action. So what I've been focusing on more recently, I do help them get in touch with what is it, because I'll ask them the question. So what would additional profitability in your business do? And they'll often say, oh, well, I'd like to make more money. And I go, yes, but what does the money allow you to do? Does it allow you to have freedom to be with your family, to have greater health and well-being, to have a greater sense of, what did somebody say recently? They said a sense of accomplishment. And like, let that settle for a moment. I think we all can align with that. Like, she wanted to have a deeper level of accomplishment in her life. And some of them want to be able to travel, et cetera. So then I'm like, okay, so let's look at strategies that can begin to get you going in that direction. And maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but the way I see it, that's kind of who I be in the world, and is I've been looking at tools for, 20 some odd years, and then I've been able to find some of the most powerful tools to get women on their path to profitability. And it helps them with leads, and it helps them with conversions, and it helps them with charging what they're worth, and it helps them to basically begin to have the business skills that maybe they've never been taught before. I know when I was trained as a psychotherapist, for example, they never taught us how to run a business. They gave us the tools in which to deliver psychotherapy, or sit with a group or sit with an individual. But so basically I had to go back to school, the coaching programs and so on, to learn the tools that I'm now sharing with women, so that their lives don't have to be as complicated and so much of a hustle, and they can feel a deeper sense of, I'll call it like that, sense of being their unique selves in their business, in their life, and valuing their rhythms,
I love that. So your clients are usually entrepreneurs, but it sounds like you could help even if they're not entrepreneurs.
Yeah, exactly. So the majority of my business are entrepreneurs, and every once in a while I'll have people slip in and they say, I want to be, I had one guy come to me and he says, I want to be a better leader. Or I had a woman, this was interesting actually, I had a woman say, Carrie, you're very magnetic and you have a really magical life. Can you teach me how to create magic in my life? And I thought about it and I thought, that's not the program I developed. I mean, I've developed a couple programs. One, Be the Queen of Your Destiny. Another one is like Bring Your Zing. And what I'm currently delivering is a program called Pathway to Profit. But it's just interesting. If I see that I can connect people to their heart's wisdom, bring it. I'll do that, in whatever way they need, because I have a number of tools that I can bring to the game.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you've been doing this like for a long time.
Yeah. I want to say close to 20 years.
Wow. That's awesome. I think that's amazing. So if you can give, our listeners, some bit of support or advice if they're struggling right now, like you said, like a lifetime struggle, what could you offer them today? Like, what could you give them as far as, maybe a path to follow or a road? Question to ask themselves even.
Yeah, so thank you for asking, because I was originally thinking, because I have like freebies on my website that they can actually access too. So the first, like I said, it's a 3-step process. The first thing is to get clear about what it is that you want to create. That's the blueprint for your life, for your business. And that's actually on my website, the Keys to Empowerment website. And then the second part of that is find some way that you can overcome your limitations. So if you're shitting on yourself, if you are judging yourself, or have beliefs that are really erroneous, get support around that. And that's something that I help people with. I'm not the only person who does it. So I get support around those things that are what I call limiting factors, the bumps in the road. And then the third part of that is take action, because it is, I'm trying to think the strong way to put this, that if you are not taking forward momentum in your life, that means if you're just cognating, maybe just thinking about ideas. I see this sometimes where people will go, they show me their 30-page business plan. I go, well, that's really nice, but what action have you taken towards your dreams? Or how is the actions that you're taking, are they actually moving you in the direction you want to go, right? So getting clear, overcoming limiting beliefs, and then taking action. And because every time we take action, we will receive some form of feedback in the process, right? Good or bad, but either way, because mistakes or failure is just a learning off.
I love it. And that's, it doesn't matter what we're doing, whether we're running a business or we're running a household. Mm-hmm. That is, those three steps that's the answer to everything we do in our life, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, obviously I could ask you a million more questions. The last question I'm going to ask you, though, is why do you do what you're doing?
Because I believe that women are the answer to changing the consciousness of our planet. We are in a destructive pattern on our planet where it's dog eat dog, it's that competition, it's less collaboration. And ever since I was a little girl, I have always known that there was a different way of doing that. My dream was to create a conscious, collaborative world where we can uplift each other. And so that's one of the reasons why I've been working with women, is because as leaders, they really want to collaborate. They're caring collaborators. And how can we bring a greater level of consciousness to the work that we're doing, to heal our planet, heal each other, heal our communities? So I often work with coaches and healers, people who are heart-centered entrepreneurs, and who have a similar vision to mine.
I love it. That's empowering, just that. I love how you answered that. That is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for asking me, Tina. I appreciate you so much. I really love what you're up to.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining in my mission.
Yep, I know. We have a similar mission, isn't it? That's why I think I was so attracted to what you're up to, is that you're really wanting to elevate the confidence that women have. And sure. So I love what you're up to.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tina.
Confidence in Bloom. Yeah, thank you. Confidence in Bloom is a celebration of self-love, a confirmation that even though you may not look like a screen star or a supermodel, they don't even look like that, you are an amazing, desirable, brilliant, gorgeous, talented woman. We offer unconditional love to our partners, our children, our extended family, even our pets. It's high time we got out of our own way and learned to unconditionally love ourselves. My In Full Bloom Styling and Coaching offers an online course combined with one-to-one coaching in business confidence building, personal branding, and creating your signature fashion look. Chic definitely comes in every shape, so if you want something to believe in, start with yourself. If you'd like to be a guest here on Confidence in Bloom, contact me through Instagram at infobloomstyling or by email at tina@infobloomstyling.com or through the Divas That Care website.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.